Following a night spent with his lover, the billionaire arrives home to find his pregnant wife presenting him with divorce papers. Jacqueline Blackwell found herself in a situation she never envisioned, signing divorce papers while expecting a child with the man she once thought was her destined partner. Yet here she stood, papers clutched tightly, anticipating her husband's arrival after a night filled with lavish excess alongside another woman. Ambrose Blackwell, a self-made millionaire admired in Manhattan's high society, had consistently navigated the delicate balance between aspiration and allure. As storm clouds loomed in the pre-dawn sky, Jacqueline's heart raced with a fierce resolve. The moment she discovered his betrayal, all dreams of a perfect marriage crumbled into dust. What follows is a tale of sorrow, unexpected turns, and the unwavering quest for a woman's honor. Jacqueline Mitchell had envisioned a charming existence since her days as a small-town teenager in upstate New York. In her youth, life was simple, family gatherings filled with laughter, local events that brought everyone together, and leisurely walks down a charming main street. Yet, hidden beneath that nurturing background was a relentless drive for success. She received a scholarship to an Ivy League university and moved to the city that never sleeps, New York. It was at a prestigious charity gala in her junior year of college that she first encountered Ambrose Blackwell. In those days, Ambrose was a budding entrepreneur resolute in his quest to leave a lasting impression on Manhattan's fierce real estate landscape. Jacqueline, lending her time at the gala for a scholarship committee, found herself outside the circle of the city's elite. Yet Ambrose perceived a unique quality within her. He presented himself with an effortless assurance that seemed innate to him. She was drawn to his presence, captivated by his laughter, his keen intellect, and the effortless way he illuminated the space around him. They embarked on a romantic journey together. Their inaugural year unfolded like a dream, filled with intimate dinners by candlelight, moonlit strolls beside the Hudson, and secret getaways to the Hamptons. As Ambrose clinched his first significant real estate deal, a multi-million-dollar development in Brooklyn, Jacqueline remained by his side, a steadfast partner throughout the journey. She provided a calm foundation to counter his intense ambition. From the very beginning, there were faint indications of trouble ahead. Ambrose thrived in the limelight, yearning for affirmation. He pursued affluent investors with unwavering passion, frequenting lavish gatherings that occasionally lasted until the break of day. He asserted that it was merely a facet of the industry, and Jacqueline took it at its word. She wished to convince herself that her husband's relentless pursuit of success was merely an innocent consequence of his driven nature. When he sometimes became elusive or returned home with the scent of a luxurious fragrance that wasn't hers, she attributed it to the unpredictable world of real estate connections. The couple exchanged vows in an opulent celebration at the Plaza Hotel. The wedding attracted attention from lifestyle magazines, showcasing images of Jacqueline in a bespoke gown, and Ambrose beaming with a sense of victorious pride. Their honeymoon in Bali appeared to affirm the vow of enduring joy. However, following the wedding, the fissures began to expand. Ambrose's hours grew increasingly unpredictable, and the discreet phone calls masquerading as business negotiations became more frequent. At charity events, whispers circulated among strangers regarding his alleged escapades. Every time, Jacqueline approached him with soft inquiries, only to be met with incomplete responses and condescending gestures of affection. Now, perched in solitude within her penthouse apartment, pregnant and engulfed by a sense of impending doom, Jacqueline came to understand that all those subtle warnings she'd previously ignored were on the verge of erupting into a cacophony. This was the night she would finally face the truth and Ambrose's betrayal directly. The penthouse in Midtown Manhattan that Jacqueline and Ambrose called home stood as a symbol of his remarkable rise. The expansive windows stretched from floor to ceiling, revealing a breathtaking vista of the city lights, from the vibrant neon of Times Square to the glistening waters of the East River. Yet this evening, the stunning panorama only deepened Jacqueline's feeling of solitude. She observed the world beneath her, racing forward with an exhilarating energy, while her own existence felt trapped in a heart-wrenching pause. Jacqueline reclined on a plush velvet chaise lounge, her fingers rhythmically tapping against her rounded belly. At 5 months pregnant, Each stir of the child inside her served as a poignant reminder that the choices she made at this moment would resonate into a future yet to be written. Ambrose remained missing, and the clock on the wall inched closer to midnight. Are you concerned about his well-being? Earlier, her friend Lauren Kim had made the request over the phone. Lauren, a longtime friend of Jacqueline since their high school days, served as the trusted listener for all her secrets. Or is he simply, out again? Jacqueline let out a forced, strained laugh. I'm confident he's doing well. Most likely caught up in discussions with an investor, or at least that's what he'll say. In that moment, Lauren's question struck at the very core of Jacqueline's anxieties, awakening the haunting possibility that Ambrose might be with another, making the whispers she had long dismissed feel all too tangible. As the hours passed, long-buried doubts began to resurface. She remembered an event from 2 months ago, when he came back from a business dinner at 3 a.m., smelling of an unfamiliar fragrance. When confronted, he brushed aside her concerns with a nonchalant, "This is how deals get done, Jackie. Don't let fear take over." Her phone vibrated, jarring her from her reverie. She wished it was Ambrose, but the screen lit up with a message from her friend Amanda Harrison, mentioning swirling whispers at an upscale lounge named Seraphim, where Ambrose was seen with a new female companion. Not a financier. Exercise caution. Her hand trembled. Amanda seldom engaged in gossip, choosing instead to maintain her thoughts privately. If she had taken the time to send that message, it was due to her profound concern for Jacqueline's emotional well-being. The baby kicked once more, and Jacqueline shut her eyes, tears welling up. This must come to a close, she contemplated, her determination solidifying. My child is worthy of more, and I am too. She ascended gradually, gliding over the penthouse's gleaming marble floor toward the master bedroom. In the walk-in closet, tucked away behind her designer handbags, rested a manila envelope she had arranged with her attorney just days prior. Within lay the divorce documents, awaiting merely her concluding signature. She had hoped she could avoid them, but that night, isolated and filled with dread, she confronted the harsh reality. Her husband's priorities were directed elsewhere, and by morning, she would no longer be the compliant wife waiting at home. At exactly 3:17 a.m., Ambrose Blackwell emerged from the private elevator and entered the softly illuminated foyer of his penthouse. The chandelier above cast ethereal reflections upon the polished marble floor. A dull ache throbbed in his temples, likely a consequence of too many glasses of champagne. He adjusted his navy suit jacket, trying to conceal the subtle fragrance of gardenia that lingered around him, a scent that was not associated with Jacqueline. He slipped off his shoes to tread quietly, only to discover her poised in the shadows by the grand piano in the living room. Startled, he halted, his refined exterior briefly shattering. "Jacqueline, what are you doing awake at this hour?" he inquired, striving to maintain a calm tone. She took her time to reply. In the dim light, Ambrose observed the weariness marked on her face, the way she held her belly with a sense of protectiveness. It served as a bittersweet reminder that she was nurturing his child, the child he had professed to desire so fervently, even while he had surrendered himself to the embrace of another. "I couldn't sleep," she finally said, her voice sharp and fragile. "Your well-being was on my mind." The words came out sharp, devoid of her typical warmth. She donned a flowing robe and soft slippers, yet her stance was rigid, as though bracing for an impending confrontation. Ambrose donned his assured grin, the very one he relied on during discussions. "I mentioned, darling, that business tends to run late. You really didn't need to stay awake for me." Jacqueline let out a deep sigh, her eyes reflecting a mix of frustration and sorrow. Who was she, really? The inquiry lingered in the atmosphere, crackling with intensity. A brief shadow of concern crossed Ambrose's features. "Could you clarify what you mean?" I attended a meeting." She shook her head, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "Be honest with me." The fragrance wafts through the air. "The evidence of lipstick is clearly visible on your collar." She pointed at his shirt, her voice quaking with barely contained anger. The whispers, the chatter, the mysterious disappearances, Everything converges on a singular truth. Ambrose prepared to weave another excuse, but the sight of Jacqueline's tearful resolve made him hesitate. The recollection of his recent escapade at Seraphim Lounge danced in his thoughts. Champagne toasts, stolen kisses, and a whispered promise he had no plans to fulfill. In that instant, he realized the undeniable reality before him. His quietude conveyed a wealth of meaning. Jacqueline tightened her lips, her shoulders tensing up. "Sover, Ambrose." Her voice trembled, even though she was resolute. "I can't take any more." She pivoted, gliding toward the kitchen counter, where a folder awaited her attention. His heart ached as he recognized the legal stationery. He had anticipated this day to some extent, yet he never envisioned it arriving so swiftly or so unexpectedly. As she extended the divorce papers with quivering hands, Ambrose understood that this evening's treachery was far more than a mere transient error. This was the moment that would dismantle all that he and Jacqueline had once held dear. Ambrose gazed at the manila folder, which appeared to emit a sinister glow beneath the overhead light. In that instant, the weight of his decisions bore down on him, overwhelming him like a relentless tide of remorse and uncertainty. Jacqueline, her demeanor fragile, set the folder down on the polished marble countertop. She opened the cover, exposing the stark legal language within, a complaint for divorce. He found it difficult to swallow. "Jacqueline, hold on." He managed to say, "Let's talk." Echoing power. "We can find a solution to this. Please refrain from making any impulsive decisions." Her expression, strained with grief, revealed no compassion. "Unsettling? I have endured your falsehoods for months, perhaps even years. I extended my trust to you repeatedly." She looked down at her swollen belly, sorrow momentarily flashing in her gaze. "We are welcoming a new life into this world, Ambrose, a child who merits caregivers that honor one another." Ambrose experienced a wave of embarrassment. How frequently had he positioned himself at a podium, sharing his success narrative for everyone to appreciate. He emerged from modest origins in Queens, navigating college while balancing several jobs, building influential relationships until he ascended to the highest ranks. Yet, in his pursuit of riches, he had forgotten the principles that once anchored him. He extended his hand toward her, yet she flinched, an invisible wall rising between them. "We can do therapy," he said, his voice trembling. "We can meet with Dr. Naomi Carter. Wasn't your friend talking about her? She has assisted couples." Jacqueline's sharp laugh interrupted him. "The moment has passed. Do you really believe I haven't sought these answers before? Or pleaded with you to share what's happening in those late-night business meetings you consistently attend? You dismissed every worry I expressed." Ambrose felt a parched sensation in his mouth. He remembered countless evenings when Jacqueline had implored him to take it easy, to remain at home rather than mingling with the high society of Manhattan. She observed him descend deeper into a realm of glamour, sparkling drinks, and empty praise. Every unfulfilled vow stacked upon the previous one, culminating in this unavoidable downfall. Her eyes sparkled with a captivating brilliance. "I cannot allow our child to grow up observing this. Deceit, unfaithfulness, perpetual uncertainty." With quivering hands, she turned the pages, pausing at the sections that designated property, established custody rights upon the baby's arrival, and detailed the legal justifications for dissolving their union. "Affix your signature. Refrain from signing it. I'm indifferent. However, I am initiating the process of divorce." Ambrose's thoughts spun in a chaotic dance. He imagined the sensational headlines, the possible repercussions for the business, the embarrassing public drama of a scandalous split. Yet, looming over everything was the devastating truth that the woman he had cherished and wed was ready to abandon him for good. And, deep down, he knew he couldn't dispute that he had earned it. Jacqueline withdrew to the far end of the penthouse's expansive open-concept living room. In her quest for distance from Ambrose, she took a deep breath, attempting to calm the quaking in her body. She had envisioned this moment repeatedly, practiced the phrases she would utter, yet no level of mental readiness could cushion the blow of genuine sorrow. Ambrose, anchored to the countertop, felt an overwhelming wave of helplessness wash over him. The relentless entrepreneur, famed for his merciless negotiations, found himself unraveling in the gaze of the one individual whose judgment held the greatest weight. He attempted to voice his thoughts, yet the words caught in his throat. Out of nowhere, the phone vibrated on the coffee table. A flurry of messages illuminated the display, presumably from the individual who had been by his side at Seraphim. Jacqueline observed, and her expression twisted. The brief flash of the phone's light served as undeniable evidence. She swallowed hard, battling the urge to let tears fall. "Do you understand?" she said, her voice heavy with fury. "That this is the absolute worst time to do this to me? I am expecting your child, Ambrose." Her eyes begged for a reason, any reason that might ease the pain of this betrayal. His shoulders drooped. "I know," he whispered, taking a careful step forward. "I understand. I made a foolish mistake, Jackie. I allowed everything to spiral out of control. The business, the success, the attention. It overwhelmed me and I lost focus on what truly mattered. We, together, our little one." She let out a derisive laugh, folding her arms tightly across her chest. "So, you've come to that understanding now?" The inquiry hung in the air. The city lights flickered with a teasing glimmer in the background, as if Manhattan itself was an observer to this unfolding drama. "Every sleepless night I spent in anticipation. Every moment I pleaded for your honesty. Do you really believe that a mere confession at this moment will change anything for the better?" Ambrose moved nearer, a hint of a tear glistening in his eye. "I've ruined our marriage," he confessed, his voice tight with emotion. "I recognize it and I loathe myself for it. If there's an opportunity, if there's anything within my reach, please let me know." Jacqueline's chest constricted, tears stinging at the back of her eyelids. A fragment of her, the once hopeful fragment, yearned to collapse into his embrace and imagine that all could be forgotten. Yet, she had absorbed too many harsh truths to entertain that illusion. Finally, she gathered a serene facade. "I no longer harbor any illusions, Ambrose. It's over." He sank noticeably, akin to a balloon slowly releasing its breath. The burden of conclusion loomed over them both. In that fleeting moment, silence enveloped them, as though the lavishness of the penthouse, the exquisite paintings, the chic furniture, the sprawling city skyline, had transformed into a muted symphony of disapproval. Silently, Jacqueline extended her hand and shut the divorce folder. She inhaled deeply, gathering all her strength and determination. Tomorrow, she would bring those papers to her lawyer, complete the process, and venture into an uncertain future, without Ambrose beside her. Despite his deep-seated regret, Ambrose recognized that he may have reached a point of no return from this edge he had so thoughtlessly ventured near. Sleep remained out of reach for Jacqueline by 5 a.m. She had relinquished all hope of rest and stood by the penthouse's expansive windows, observing the dawn unfurl over Manhattan. The dawn broke, casting soft hues of pink and orange across the sky, a gentle reminder that the world continued to turn, unaffected by her turmoil. She gently held her belly, murmuring soothing words to the little one within. Even as her heart seemed to shatter, she determined that her child would not bear the weight of her grief. Ambrose had at last withdrawn to the guest bedroom, though she had a feeling he wasn't sleeping either. She could still feel him there, an unwelcome weight tugging at her balance. She crept quietly through the living room, her eyes darting across the marbled hallway, filled with a sense of foreboding. With each step, the heaviness of the manila folder grew more pronounced. By mid-morning, she had arranged for a car service to take her to the Upper East Side, where her dear friend and confidant, Lauren Kim, resided in a cozy yet inviting apartment. With a rush of worry, Lauren swung the door open and enveloped Jacqueline in a tight embrace. As soon as she caught sight of her face, marked by tears, "Oh, Jackie," Lauren whispered, leading her into the inviting living room. The space felt like a distant realm from Jacqueline's penthouse, smaller and filled with personal mementos such as postcards from her travels and piles of books. Yet the warmth here presented a striking contrast to the cold magnificence she had departed from. Jacqueline sank into the soft embrace of the plush sofa, releasing a shaky breath. "I couldn't remain there," she confessed, her eyes glistening with the threat of fresh tears. "I have initiated the process of divorce, or I will soon take that step. The documents are prepared." Lauren's eyes grew wide. At last, she spoke softly, holding Jacqueline's hand with a tender grip. "I understand the pain you're feeling, but it's time to acknowledge that you've endured it for far too long. You are worthy of more, and your child is worthy of more." A solitary tear traced its way down Jacqueline's cheek. "I hoped he could transform, that happiness could be ours. It's simply that each time I extended my trust, he would inevitably turn around and betray it." Lauren acknowledged with a knowing nod. She had observed Ambrose's routine of late nights and elusive truths from the shadows. "What comes next?" Jacqueline let out a soft sigh, her hand resting gently on her abdomen as if to shield it from the world. "My priority is to ensure my child's safety above all else. If it's all right with you, I'd like to stay for a few days while I sort out my next steps." "Absolutely," Lauren responded instantly. "You may remain for as long as necessary." She hesitated, then continued. "Have you thought about consulting your attorney regarding custody and support matters? Ambrose may attempt to influence the circumstances." Jacqueline winced, remembering how Ambrose's affluence frequently provided him an advantage in courtroom conflicts. She vowed that she would. "I will ensure he faces his responsibilities head-on. However, I also wish for my child to be raised in a stable environment. I find myself in such a dilemma." As she sank further into the sofa's inviting cushions, Jacqueline was overwhelmed with appreciation for Lauren's steadfast support. She had embarked on her journey toward liberation, despite the daunting tempest of doubt that lay ahead. Just under a day later, Jacqueline found herself in the bustling Midtown Manhattan offices of Chambers and Delgado, a law firm renowned for its esteemed reputation in the city. The gleaming marble floors and contemporary decor evoked memories of Ambrose's penthouse. Every detail was crafted to radiate strength and accuracy. Her heart raced as she neared the reception desk. Manila folder held tightly against her heart. A refined aide ushered her into a spacious corner office adorned with glass walls that offered a view of the lively streets beneath. There she encountered her attorney, Rebecca Delgado, a composed woman in her early 40s recognized for her sharp perspective on family law. Rebecca presented a polished smile, inviting Jacqueline to take a seat in the leather armchair. "Jacqueline," Rebecca began, her tone a blend of warmth and professionalism, "I'm sorry you're facing this situation. I have gone through the initial documents you provided. Considering your husband's financial standing, we can pursue a significant amount for alimony and child support." Jacqueline nodded, emotion swelling within her. "I comprehend. I have no intention of bringing him down, but he has shown that he is untrustworthy, particularly when it comes to finances. I must guarantee that my child is taken care of, come what may." Rebecca leaned forward, her hands resting elegantly on her desk. "I completely concur. The forthcoming actions involve submitting the formal petition for divorce to the court. We will outline Ambrose's unfaithfulness as the basis, along with any corroborating evidence you possess, such as documents, witness statements, or text messages. This will strengthen your argument should he challenge any aspect of it." Jacqueline's mind wandered to the late-night messages and images she had received from friends such as Amanda Harrison, alluding to Ambrose's missteps. She loathed the thought of exposing her marital issues in a courtroom, yet her pride had to yield to the realities of the situation. She confessed softly, "I have a paper trail, though I wished it would never come to that." Rebecca acknowledged with understanding. "I require access to all relevant information, including bank accounts, property deeds, the baby's medical records, and any other documents that can illuminate the financial and parental situation. Will you be staying with your friend Lauren as this progresses?" Jacqueline wiped away a lone tear. "Indeed, at this moment that seems to be the case. I am unable to go back to the penthouse. I simply can't confront him." Rebecca's demeanor became gentler. "I comprehend. However, remember that if Ambrose is adamant, He is entitled to stay in your marital home unless a court decides differently. Legal frameworks often overlook the nuances of emotional distances. Her chest constricted. The vastness of the legal process proved to be more intimidating than she had expected. What would you suggest I take action on immediately? Consider filing for temporary spousal support and exclusive occupancy of the penthouse, should you desire it. It can be contended that you are expecting, and it is essential for your health to maintain a sense of stability. The court frequently considers these factors. Jacqueline released a breath, her knuckles pale as they gripped the manila folder tightly. Very well, she replied at last. Let's get started. As she signed the retainer agreement and handed over the official divorce papers, a wave of mixed relief and apprehension washed over her. She was entering a conflict zone, equipped with legal expertise and her steadfast determination. The forthcoming obstacle was Ambrose himself and how he would react upon discovering her intention to hold him responsible. Meanwhile, within the confines of the penthouse, Ambrose found himself ensnared in a whirlwind of remorse. He strode across the gleaming floors, stopping now and then to cast a scornful look at the phone that had exposed his secret dealings. In the stillness of the apartment, every sound felt magnified. The soft hum of the air conditioning, the sporadic rush of traffic filtering in from the streets below. By midday, he resolved to seek the counsel of his attorney, Atticus Chambers, who was the co-founder of the very firm that Jacqueline had approached. Nonetheless, Ambrose had previously forged a professional connection with Atticus in another role, specifically in real estate and corporate law. Gazing out at the dynamic cityscape through the expansive windows, Ambrose initiated the call. Ambrose, Atticus said with a nod. A hint of worry laced his tone. I understand you're dealing with some personal challenges. In what ways can I assist you? Ambrose paused, forcing down the lump in his throat. I require the strongest defense in this divorce, he confessed, his voice strained. Jacqueline is expecting a baby and she's walking away from me. I made a mistake, Atticus, but I can't afford to lose it all. Atticus paused, clearly weighing the seriousness of the moment. Is there a possibility of resolving this without resorting to legal action? How about mediation? Ambrose shut his eyes, envisioning Jacqueline's sorrowful expression and the sense of betrayal that had marred their union. I would love to, but she presented me with divorce papers. I'm certain she's affiliated with Delgado's office. They have a reputation for standing firm on issues of spousal support and child custody. Atticus let out a breath. We shall brace ourselves for the challenges ahead, while holding on to the hope for a brighter outcome. Initially, it's essential to gain a comprehensive insight into your assets, properties, bank accounts, stock options, and all related matters. We must ensure they don't portray you as someone who might flee or attempt to conceal assets. That will only diminish the judge's empathy. Ambrose ran his fingers through his hair, remembering the countless times he had bragged about having everything perfectly arranged. At that moment, it seemed as though everything he knew was falling apart. I will forward my financial documents to you. Atticus took a moment to reflect. Ambrose, prepare yourself for a battle. Documented evidence of infidelity could sway the judge's views on alimony and custody arrangements. Demonstrating genuine remorse and a commitment to being a responsible father could be beneficial. A sharp ache pierced Ambrose's heart at the mention of father. He was absent for the most recent sonogram. Instead, he found himself at Seraphim, sharing drinks with a woman whose name slipped from his mind like water through fingers. I'll go to any lengths, he whispered, tightening his jaw. I refuse to let her go without proving that I can transform. As the call concluded, he sensed a thick silence enveloping the penthouse, a palpable disapproval emanating from the very walls, as if they were condemning his treachery. Burdened by remorse, he picked up his phone and gazed at Jacqueline's contact photo, a vibrant image of her beaming on a sun-soaked beach getaway. With quivering hands, he composed a message. I apologize, I'm present. I kindly ask to be included in the baby's life. He pressed send, acutely conscious that a mere apology might fall short in repairing the damage he had caused. As Jacqueline sat at Lauren's kitchen table, sipping her lukewarm tea, her phone buzzed with a text from Ambrose. As she absorbed the message, laden with regret and heartfelt requests to be included in the baby's life. A tightness gripped her heart. A tempest of fury, sorrow, and a peculiar glimmer of compassion swirled inside her. With deliberate intent, she set the phone face down on the table, choosing silence over a reply. Lauren stood by the stove, gently warming a bowl of oatmeal for breakfast. "He certainly seems determined, doesn't he?" she inquired gently. Jacqueline gave a slight shake of her head. "He expresses regret and a desire to participate. However, I'm uncertain about whether I can place my trust in that any longer. I feel utterly exhausted, Lauren." Her friend stepped away from the stove and enveloped her in a comforting hug. "It's perfectly natural to experience those feelings. This burden has been yours to bear for an extended period." Jacqueline valued the encouragement she received. She gently caressed her belly, captivated by the intense protectiveness that pregnancy inspired within her. Every flutter from within served as a poignant reminder that her struggle extended beyond her own existence. It was for an innocent life that relied on her decisions. She released a deep breath. Rebecca indicates that the subsequent action is to complete the filing and formally serve Ambrose with the documents. She suggested that I think about obtaining a restraining order if he becomes excessively aggressive or attempts to coerce me into returning. Lauren scowled. "Do you believe he would actually go through with that?" Jacqueline paused, remembering Ambrose's sporadic outbursts of fury in the midst of tense business negotiations. Even though he had never laid a hand on her, she understood all too well how desperation could transform someone. She confessed her hope, yet acknowledged the ruthless nature he displayed during negotiations. This could be just the same. A stillness enveloped them, as each woman drifted into her own reflections. Outside, the city's symphony drifted through the open window. The rumble of traffic, a distant car horn, a fleeting snippet of conversation. Life continued its relentless rush, unaware of the inner chaos that consumed Jacqueline. "Have you shared the news with your mother yet?" Lauren inquired softly. Jacqueline shook her head, a wave of guilt washing over her. Margaret Mitchell, her mother, resided in the same quaint town upstate where Jacqueline grew up. The woman held Ambrose dear, proudly sharing tales of his achievements with every neighbor. "I can't stand the thought of shattering her heart," she murmured. "She believed I had discovered my Prince Charming." Lauren gave a wistful smile. "It's wiser to share the truth than to conceal it." Jacqueline nodded, bracing herself for what was to come, knowing she could really use her comfort at this moment. She would require her mother's steadfast support and wisdom, particularly as she faced the impending legal struggle. At this moment, she chose to prioritize her own mental health. She finished her tea, mentally preparing to stay composed when the impending whirlwind of lawsuits, property assessments, and custody petitions arrived. Above all, she promised to uphold the safety and future of her child, regardless of Ambrose's feelings of remorse. Just 2 days later, the capricious weather of Manhattan unleashed a torrential downpour, transforming the city's sidewalks into flowing rivers. Jacqueline, resolute in her commitment to attend her prenatal checkup at Mount Sinai Hospital, stepped out into the rain, clutching a black umbrella. A flicker of unease washed over her. In the early stages of her pregnancy, she had typically followed a routine where Ambrose would accompany her to these appointments. Yet he was no longer present, a decision made by her own hand, and she endeavored to calm her racing heart as she alighted from the bus at the hospital's threshold. Within the space, the harsh glow of fluorescent lights and the soft chatter of patients registering created an illusion of routine. She provided her name to the receptionist and settled into a chair, disregarding the inquisitive looks from onlookers who may have known her from the society columns. The union of the Blackwells was as much in the spotlight as it was enchanting, with gossip swirling endlessly regarding their difficulties. After a brief wait, a nurse signaled for her to come over. "Mrs. Blackwell," she called, her voice a bit rushed as she stumbled over the name. Jacqueline stood, acutely aware of her transformed circumstances. She may soon part ways with that last name. She took a seat in the exam room, anticipating the arrival of Dr. Naomi Carter. Dr. Carter was a compassionate and seasoned obstetrician who had guided numerous couples through the journey of pregnancy. Moments later, the door swung open, and Jacqueline felt her stomach drop as Ambrose entered, following Dr. Carter. The physician presented a courteous grin. "I regret any unexpectedness. Mr. Blackwell was adamant about being present for today's appointment. He mentioned that you may have overlooked informing me otherwise." Jacqueline's thoughts surged with intensity. She stifled her surprise and urged herself to stay composed. Ambrose lingered in the doorway, soaked from the downpour, his gaze filled with desperation. He spoke gently, expressing his concern. "I just wanted to make sure everything's okay with the baby. I kindly ask for your permission to remain here. I assure you, there will be no debate from my side." A surge of feelings crashed over her. A portion of her seethed at his nerve, appearing without warning after she had made the decision to move on from him. Another section, the section that recalled how eagerly he had anticipated the first ultrasound, softened. She locked eyes with Dr. Carter, a flicker of doubt in her expression. "It's completely your decision," Dr. Carter said softly. "If you're feeling uneasy, I can request that he steps out." Jacqueline's heart raced, yet she compelled herself to nod. "He can remain," she whispered, her tone heavy with emotion. Ambrose settled into a chair by the exam table, his hands clumsily intertwined in his lap. "Physician." Carter moved through the familiar routine, taking measurements of Jacqueline's belly, monitoring her blood pressure, and inquiring about any discomfort or symptoms she might be experiencing. Throughout the entire time, Ambrose stayed unusually quiet, his eyes locked on Jacqueline's expression or the monitor displaying the fetal heartbeat. As the whooshing sound of the baby's heartbeat resonated throughout the room, Jacqueline felt an overwhelming surge of emotion, tears threatening to spill over. Ambrose's eyes shimmered, revealing a fleeting hint of the paternal joy he could have experienced, were it not for the vast divide that separated them. As soon as the exam concluded, Jacqueline's determination surged back. She wrapped her coat snugly around herself, ready to depart with haste. Ambrose had encroached upon her sanctuary, yet regardless of the sincerity of his regret, she refused to allow him to disrupt her decisions once more. Immediately, Dr. Carter exited the room, while Jacqueline gracefully descended from the exam table, resolute in her intent to leave before Ambrose had the chance to confront her. He swiftly positioned himself in front of the door, his demeanor measured, signaling that he had something significant to convey. "I appreciate your kindness in allowing me to stay," he murmured, his voice low, aware of the lively hospital corridor just outside. "I understand that was not necessary for you to do." Jacqueline averted her eyes, concentrating on the meticulous task of adjusting the zipper of her coat. She sensed the palpable tension surrounding her, and the knot in her chest tightened further. She responded, urging not to overanalyze the situation. "I'm simply not seeking a spectacle," he nodded, a hint of sadness crossing his face. "I understand, but I need you to convey something, Jackie." He paused, seeking the perfect words. "I'm not opposing you out of a desire for retribution. I am determined to preserve our marriage, as the thought of life without you and our child is unimaginable to me." Jacqueline's fury erupted, eclipsing the sorrow. "You couldn't fathom existence without us," she reiterated, her voice quivering. "So, what compelled you to gamble everything for just one night with a mistress, or however many nights it turned out to be?" He winced, remembering the reckless affair that had morphed into a painful reminder of treachery. "I felt powerless. The allure was undeniable, the rush invigorating, and I fully recognize how sad that may seem. Yet my love for you has never wavered." She rested a hand gently on her stomach, finding solace in the life blossoming within her. "Your expression of affection is quite unconventional, Ambrose." She wiped away the tears that were on the verge of spilling. "It's time to acknowledge that an apology and a moment of concern during a doctor's visit won't resolve this issue. I have initiated the divorce proceedings. Your papers will arrive shortly." Ambrose's expression dimmed. He ran his fingers through his wet hair, each breath unsteady. "What if you just listen to me for a moment? Have we considered the possibility of seeking counseling? I am willing to do whatever it takes. I will reduce my hours, distance myself from the negative influences, and make all necessary changes. Promise. Her thoughts drifted to those solitary nights in bed, anticipating his return, only to find calls slipping into voicemail, accompanied by murmured justifications at dawn. She envisioned how she had comforted herself with fantasies that he would transform once the baby arrived. Months ago I requested therapy, she said, her voice strained. You brushed it aside, claiming we didn't require an outsider dictating the terms of our relationship. Ambrose's eyes shimmered with remorse. I was a fool, Jacqueline breathed out. You remain so, if you believe I can overlook your actions. With that, she glided past him, entering the corridor. The hospital atmosphere, with its beeping monitors, hurried nurses, and anxious families, felt strikingly ordinary against the backdrop of the emotional storm she was facing. Ambrose whispered her name gently, yet she remained unmoved. He found himself excluded from her choices, despite his fervent appeals to be included. Returning to Lauren's apartment, Jacqueline closed herself off in the spare bedroom, perusing a folder of documents that Rebecca Delgado had forwarded. Every page highlighted the truth she was entering: a formal request for divorce, affidavits detailing Ambrose's unfaithfulness, and financial statements outlining his wealth. A tempest of clashing feelings enveloped her: grief, determination, and unease intertwined within her. With a gentle knock, Lauren pushed the door open. How are you doing? She inquired, her tone filled with worry. Jacqueline set the papers down with a deliberate motion. No, she confessed, but I'm taking the necessary steps. Lauren settled next to her on the bed, giving a gentle pat on the shoulder for reassurance. I caught a glimpse of you mentioning to Dr. Carter that Ambrose arrived at the appointment. Jacqueline nodded, clearly feeling the weight of the situation. He pleads for another opportunity: guidance, reduced workload, and the end of sleepless nights. All the things I requested from him months back. Lauren let out a deep breath. At times, individuals come to understand the value of what they possess only after it has slipped away from them. That's the heartbreaking aspect, Jacqueline responded softly. He's coming to terms with it now, but the harm has already been inflicted. I feel utterly drained, Lauren. I'm tired of this endless pursuit, this game of cat and mouse, trying to win his heart and ensure his loyalty. A friend wrapped her in a comforting embrace. You're not going to face this by yourself. We'll devise a strategy for you and the little one.
Y assure you.
As they were saying their goodbyes, Jacqueline's phone suddenly rang. The caller ID displayed a number from her former hometown. Her mother. She took a deep breath, recalling the anxiety that had been building up for this moment. She cast a glance of silent support at Lauren before responding. Hi, Mom, she started, her voice trembling. The news was undeniably harsh. I have a story to share about Ambrose and me. Her mother's worried greeting shifted to despair as Jacqueline detailed the circumstances. Voice quivering. The shock in Margaret Mitchell's voice was unmistakable, cutting through the phone line with clarity. She posed an endless array of inquiries. For how long had this been unfolding? Why had Jacqueline not spoken up sooner? Was there any possibility for mending the rift? Each question pierced Jacqueline's conscience anew, leaving her feeling raw and exposed. As the call drew to a close, her mother was in tears, vowing to offer assistance in every possible manner. Return home, Jackie, she implored. Let's collaborate and find a solution together. Jacqueline vowed to think it over, yet she hesitated to abandon the city that had become her home. Once the call ended, she slid down the wall, her tears flowing freely down her face. She sensed the heavy burden of her mother's disapproval, the overwhelming cascade of legal choices, and the sharp ache of her unborn child's unpredictable fate. Lauren gently rested her hand on Jacqueline's shoulder. Storms never last forever, she murmured gently. You're making the right choice, even when it's painful. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance, mirroring the tempest within her heart. In the midst of overwhelming sorrow, Jacqueline held onto an essential truth. She was liberated now, able to mold her existence without falsehood or trepidation. 2 weeks later, the unyielding rhythm of Manhattan continued to pulse, as though nothing had shifted. Yet for Jacqueline, all had changed. She stayed at Lauren's apartment, creating a fresh sense of routine with morning walks around the block to soothe her pregnancy discomforts. Afternoons dedicated to dissecting legal briefs alongside Rebecca Delgado, and evenings nestled on the sofa, her thoughts meandering between concern and eager expectation for the future. Rebecca arranged a mediation session, an essential step prior to finalizing the divorce. This presented an opportunity for both sides, along with their legal representatives, to convene in a structured environment and strive to resolve issues without resorting to litigation. Jacqueline's feelings were conflicted. She feared the prospect of encountering Ambrose once more, yet held on to the hope that this might hasten her liberation from the marriage. On the morning of the mediation, she stood before a mirror in Lauren's bedroom, adjusting a simple navy maternity dress that exuded both comfort and a sense of quiet assurance. She took a deep breath, resting her hand on her abdomen. The infant delivered a gentle, comforting nudge. "We will overcome this," she murmured. In the mediator's office, a stylish and uncluttered suite nestled within a midtown high-rise, Jacqueline made her entrance alongside Rebecca. They entered a conference room, adorned with a spacious glass table and elegant leather chairs. A window framed the vibrant city below, a silent reminder that life continued, unbothered by individual struggles. Ambrose had taken his place at the far end of the table, in the company of Atticus Chambers. He stood as Jacqueline appeared, his gaze a blend of yearning and regret. She averted his gaze, directing her attention to arranging her purse meticulously on the chair. The mediator, an experienced expert named Daphne Morales, commenced by establishing the foundational principles: respect, honesty, and a sincere readiness to engage in negotiation. Her serene, measured voice momentarily alleviated the strain in the atmosphere. Rebecca began by outlining Jacqueline's grounds for divorce, including infidelity, emotional neglect, and the necessity for financial stability for both herself and her child. She sought significant alimony, child support, and sole occupancy of the penthouse until the child reached the age of 1. Ambrose's brow knitted in concentration, yet he held his tongue, appearing to struggle against the urge to engage in a debate. As Atticus took his turn, he recognized Ambrose's betrayal, but suggested it was merely a fleeting mistake, encouraging Jacqueline to consider the possibility of mending their relationship. He suggested a shorter alimony duration, a more reasonable child support arrangement, and joint custody after the baby arrived. The term shared custody sent a jolt through Jacqueline's heart. She envisioned the baby's crib in one home, then another, oscillating between them, an infant too innocent to grasp the turmoil between parents. Time dragged on as they navigated through a series of proposals and rebuttals. At times, Ambrose attempted to engage Jacqueline directly, yet Rebecca resolutely guided him back to the formal procedure. The atmosphere was thick with unease, punctuated now and then by the mediator's soothing tone urging them toward compromise. As the day wore on, a cautious understanding began to take shape. Ambrose was ready to provide a generous monthly support amount and allow Jacqueline to reside in the penthouse for a year, after which they would sell it and divide the profits. In return, he sought generous visitation rights for the child, as well as shared legal custody for important decisions. Jacqueline's stomach churned at the thought of entrusting him with such important choices. Nevertheless, she understood that the child was entitled to a father. They emerged from the session drained, with no definitive resolution achieved, yet the contours of a settlement beginning to crystallize. As Jacqueline entered the elevator alongside Rebecca, she let out a shaky breath. She felt as though she had just completed a grueling marathon, exhausting her both physically and emotionally. "This is merely the start," Rebecca warned, "yet it's a positive indication that they're open to discussions." Jacqueline nodded, placing a hand gently on her belly. For the first time, she caught a glimpse of a resolution to this emotional impasse. It was uncertain if Ambrose would uphold his commitments or undermine them, yet she pledged to herself that she would never again compromise her dignity or her child's welfare in the wake of treachery. In the ensuing month, discussions unfolded through a whirlwind of emails, phone calls, and sporadic face-to-face meetings with the mediator. With every new draft of the divorce settlement, The resolution drew nearer, a compromise that both parties could accept, yet neither felt completely content. Ambrose held tightly to the belief that, through these exchanges, he might convince Jacqueline to rethink her decision to end their marriage. Yet, whenever he attempted to weave in a personal appeal, she gently but resolutely reminded him that this was a legal matter, not a session of marriage therapy. On a brisk morning, Jacqueline got a call from Rebecca. The attorney revealed the date for the final hearing. In just a week, we can present ourselves before the judge and finalize the settlement. Jacqueline felt a constricting sensation in her chest upon hearing the news. A part of her experienced a sense of relief at the thought of soon escaping the uncertainty of her crumbling marriage. Yet a twinge of sorrow blossomed, as well. This wasn't the vision she had for her family life. She had never envisioned a scenario where she would be pregnant and facing the challenges of negotiating custody on her own. Yet, beneath her sorrow there was a steady assurance. She had to protect her child from a harmful atmosphere. The morning of the final hearing arrived, shrouded in a chill and a persistent drizzle. Jacqueline chose her attire with precision, slipping into a fitted black maternity dress, intent on presenting herself as both strong and dignified in the courtroom. Lauren was there by her side, providing the comfort she needed. They encountered Rebecca at the courthouse steps, a neoclassical structure with columns that towered beneath the overcast sky. The atmosphere in the courtroom was thick with tension. Ambrose and Atticus occupied the opposing table, their faces etched with seriousness. A small group of spectators, intrigued passers-by, and a few journalists who identified them filled the benches. Jacqueline settled into her chair, pushing aside the flutter in her stomach that could have been either nerves or the baby's gentle kicks. As the judge made their entrance, all stood in unison. The session commenced with the customary formalities from each lawyer, establishing identities, and a summary of the suggested settlement. Jacqueline averted her gaze from Ambrose, directing her attention to the judge's calm and deliberate tone. The conditions were clearly defined: spousal support, child maintenance, custody arrangements, asset division. A silence enveloped the room as the judge inquired whether both parties consented to the stipulations. Ambrose cleared his throat, casting a quick glance at Jacqueline. For a brief instant, she was apprehensive that he could engage in battle once more. Yet, when he spoke, his voice carried a gentle softness. "I concur, Your Honor." Jacqueline was addressed by the judge. "Mrs. Blackwell, do you agree with these terms?" She let out a breath, a mix of relief and heartbreak churning within her chest. "Indeed, Your Honor," she replied, her voice unwavering. "I certainly do." With that, the gavel fell, initiating the formal end of their union. Cameras illuminated the scene as a reporter's phone documented the poignant conclusion of a once-admired partnership. The judge wrapped up the proceedings and departed from the bench, leaving Jacqueline and Ambrose to weave their way through a bustling corridor filled with curious onlookers. After what seemed like an endless stretch of time, Jacqueline finally locked eyes with Ambrose. She saw the anguish within, mirroring her own experience. Yet this was the path they had selected. He cast aside loyalty. She cast aside her carefully cultivated defenses. A single tear rolled down her cheek, which she swiftly wiped away. With a decisive turn, she made her way to the exit, every step a bold assertion of her destiny. A week following the hearing, the court officially acknowledged Jacqueline Blackwell's divorce. She stirred from slumber on a crisp, sun-drenched morning in Lauren's apartment, enveloped by a feeling of closure and a faint excitement for what lay ahead. Felt like she had released a tremendous weight. Indeed, she remained in the state of pregnancy. Indeed, her existence was filled with obstacles. Yet she had also embraced her true self, carving out a journey no longer obscured by Ambrose's lies. She glided through the apartment with a gentle grace, crafting a simple breakfast of toast and orange juice. Lauren had already departed for work, leaving behind a heartfelt note of encouragement on the kitchen table. Jacqueline beamed at her friend's kindness before she flipped open her laptop to browse through her emails. One captured her attention. A message from Rebecca, providing the final filing details and including the signed judgment of divorce. The task was completed, completely finished. Her phone vibrated, signaling a new message from Ambrose. I understand that the marriage has ended, but I would like to attend the upcoming prenatal appointment. Please inform me if that can be arranged. A wave of conflicting feelings washed over her. The agreement allowed him to be involved in significant pregnancy moments and future co-parenting responsibilities. As she absorbed his plea, she felt the sincerity in his words, yet recognized that trust is not a magic trick that can be performed in an instant. Jacqueline crafted a thoughtful response. The meeting is scheduled for next Thursday at 2 p.m. If you wish to be present, make the effort to arrive. I won't hold you back. After hitting send, she shut her eyes, taking a deep breath. She desired the best for her child, even if it required permitting Ambrose to build a connection while she remained vigilant. As the hours passed, she found herself scouring the internet for apartments nearer to her former neighborhood. With the settlement funds she had secured, she was poised to enjoy a comfortable lifestyle as she mapped out her next professional journey. A piece of her longed for a cozy spot in Brooklyn, close to the serene streets and the sense of community that had captured her heart when she first arrived in the city. Another part of her considered going back to her childhood hometown for a calmer setting to nurture the baby. At this moment, she possessed choices, and that sufficed. As dusk settled in, she nestled into the cozy embrace of the living room couch, savoring fruit slices while perusing a baby name book with curiosity. She lingered on a handful of names that struck a chord: Adeline, Sebastian, Eliana, Jude. With a smile, she envisioned a future that was entirely hers and her child's, liberated from the chains of betrayal. A surge of appreciation enveloped her. In the midst of her struggles, she discovered a path toward a fresh start. Jacqueline's narrative serves as a poignant reminder that even the most enchanting tales can fall apart when treachery weaves its way into the fabric of the story. The once radiant existence she had with Ambrose crumbled beneath the burden of betrayal, compelling her to face heartbreak and maneuver through a tangled web of legal challenges. Amidst each overwhelming setback, Jacqueline unearthed a reservoir of resilience, one that steered her to safeguard her unborn child and restore her own sense of self. We appreciate you joining us to witness Jacqueline's heartfelt journey. If this story of love, betrayal, and resilience struck a chord with you, please consider supporting it by liking this video. Share it with friends who enjoy compelling real-life narratives, and subscribe to our channel to keep up with more impactful stories. Your involvement allows us to keep producing impactful content, and we appreciate you being part of this journey through the complexities of human feelings. Keep an eye out for our upcoming tale.